Yo, what's up? Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to talk about the comfort zone and why it keeps you from making friends. So put very simply, the comfort zone stops you from making friends because in order to make friends, you need to talk to more people. And in order to do that, you gotta overcome approach anxiety. And so overcoming this approach anxiety means stepping out of the circle of comfort that you are in right now. So in this video, I'm gonna go over an analogy for the comfort zone so that we can understand it better and how to get out of it and throw down some progression steps and tips along the way. So let's get started. So let's start off with the analogy. The analogy for the comfort zone is simply a circle. Right? If this is you right now, and this is your comfort zone, then anything that scares you is outside of your comfort zone. So let's say right there. Talking to people is one example, talking to new people that you might not know. So I really like this analogy because not only does your circle expand when you do more things. So if, let's say, you are now comfortable talking to guys at coffee shops. So your comfort zone then expands to include this thing that once scared you. You're no longer scared of it anymore. You're just able to do it. So then the next thing is, let's say, talking to girls at coffee shops. Or let's say your goal in the future is to walk up to someone, like a stranger on the street. Let's say someone you find really attractive and get their number. And let's say that's way over here. So this analogy of the comfort zone is really nice because not only does the circle expand to include things that you are constantly becoming more and more comfortable with, but if you don't do anything, your comfort zone shrinks, right? It goes from this to this. And this is why during COVID, for example, when restrictions were lifted, everyone kind of lost their social skills, is because we were stuck at home all the time, right? It's kind of like working out. If you don't use a muscle for a while, you can't expect yourself to perform the same amount of reps at the same weight as you did 2 months ago. So your comfort zone not only expands every time you take on new challenges and become more and more comfortable, but it also shrinks if you do nothing. So this is why it's important to always constantly be challenging yourself. Now, in the context of making friends, this is important because if you don't actively practice the skill, then you are going to lose it, and your comfort zone will shrink to a point where you find, let's say you found talking to people in class comfortable. If you don't practice that, it shrinks and you find that this is now no longer comfortable for you. It scares you. There's more friction in the way. So how to tackle this is progression steps, right? You can't just jump to getting a girl's number, like someone random on the street. You can't just jump to this because this is a lot of friction from here. Let's say this is your normal comfort zone, your normal comfort zone, right? There's a lot of friction between this and this. So what you do is you break it down into steps, right? Kind of like this here, and eventually you will get to this point. Okay, so now that we've established that the goal here is to grow your comfort zone slowly over time so that you become more comfortable talking to people and therefore making friends, let's talk about some actual practical tips and progression steps that you can take in order to actually do this. So the first tip is low risk, easy interactions. And these are things that you are comfortable with, right? These are things that you should be comfortable with to slightly uncomfortable. Remember, we're not trying to go all the way out here, we're just trying to go right here. So this could be things like talking to people in the elevator. If you're not comfortable with that, then say have a good night as they leave. If you're not comfortable with that, then scale back. Right? If you're not comfortable with something, you can always scale back to a point where you are comfortable and then scale up from there. So low risk interactions include the elevator thing, asking people for the time, or asking people for directions, or asking the barista at the Starbucks when you order your coffee, how was your day, right? These are examples of very low-risk interactions. The second progression step is what I call warm interactions. Now, these are interactions that are warm, which means you already have some pretext to go off of, so you don't have to start a conversation out of the blue. So an example of this is, if you go to dance class, those are warm interactions, right? Like if you go to dance class and someone else is in dance class, like I'm assuming you're not just going to dance class all by yourself. If you're going to dance class and there's other people there, you can talk about dance. It's warm because you already have a common topic. Another example is friend meetups. So like let's say you meet a friend and they bring their friend. Well, that's a warm interaction because the common point that you guys have is that mutual friend. You can say, oh, how did you meet like Sandy, for example. So you can also make these, right? Like let's say you are in a line at a bubble tea shop and you and the person in front of you are both looking at menus. Well, just because it's a cold interaction in the sense that you're in a bubble tea shop, you don't really know these people, you still are in a bubble tea shop, right? There's a common interest in bubble tea and you both are looking at the menu. You can start a conversation by saying, hey, what are you going to get? Do you come here often? So you can create these. So just because something seems cold doesn't necessarily mean it is. You can create this. So I've talked about cold interactions, so as you can guess, the third is cold interactions. And there's a whole spectrum to this. This goes from walking up to someone randomly in, let's say, a cafe or a bar, which is a bit more warm, but it's also a bit cold, right? This goes from, like bar / cafe or any other place that you're somewhat comfortable with, like let's say a library, maybe like a classroom if you're in school, right? This goes from this all the way to things like cold approaching strangers. Like let's say on the street. Right? And within this, there's spectrums too, right? So you can say within this you have like let's say just people and then all the way to like attractive people. Because I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of approach anxiety when I approach attractive people. Like I start overthinking and like my heart starts racing, and so there's a spectrum this way and there's also a spectrum this way too, right? This applies to cold approaching people on the street as well. So I'm still learning this and I'm still trying to break this down, but these are the 3 progression steps that you can take in order to get more comfortable meeting people and hopefully making friends. So before we end this video, I'll leave you with one other thing. This is a great analogy, not just for leveling up your social skills and getting out of your comfort zone and trying to make friends and meet new people, but it's also a good analogy for anything else in life. Like if you think about going to the gym, it's literally this. If you don't go to the gym for a while, you're gonna progress backwards. If you go to the gym consistently enough, you're going to constantly push yourself outside of your comfort zone until you hit a big goal that you've wanted to hit for a while. It's just consistency. Consistency matters. And always keep in mind that it's okay to take breaks. Like going back isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just remember, if you go back, aim for something just outside of this comfort zone instead of something like here, right? Just because you were used to this in the past doesn't mean you can do it. There might be a lot more friction here that you'll have to overcome. So take small steps towards that. And in the example of COVID, right? Like if you're comfortable talking to people at cafes and now you're no longer comfortable because you haven't talked to anybody in like a year, then start small. Start talking to your friends first, maybe on the phone, and then meet up IRL, and then slowly work your way towards this. All right, that's pretty much it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. And what do you think of this camera setup? This is sick, eh? Like, I think this personally looks great. All right, I'll see you later. Peace. I am going to magically erase this board through the powers of editing. Okay, that either looked really smooth or really shitty. You let me know, right? Okay, peace for real.